Two home runs led the Mets to a 6-2 win, and the series was tied at 2. Then in Game 5, the momentum wobbled back to the Red Sox, as on the eve of one of baseball's greatest games, Hurst was back in the driver's seat.
Fastball high, and he chased it again. The Red Sox win it 4-2. They now have a 3-2 advantage. We'll be back to the party after this.
And so it began on a cool October night at Shea. Game 6, featuring Bob Ojeda for the Mets against a well-rested Roger Clemens. Advantage, Boston.
Hey, we're ahead 3-2 with 2 games left with our best man out on the hill with 5 days rest going against their man with 3 days rest. I mean, we should win.
The only thing that goes through your mind right now at this point is to go out and try to win, and hopefully it's not over, because it'll be a long winter. And it'd be a very boring winter, knowing that you was in the World Series and you had a great year and you didn't win the World Series.
After 67 long winters in Boston, Wade Boggs lit the first candle of hope.
It will be noisy here at Shea on Saturday night. It is a festive, highly enthusiastic crowd. And there's a hopper off the glove at third of night, and Santana can't pick it up, and Boggs is aboard.
But then, as if to counter Boston's stab at a quick start, the Mets received one more highly visible fan from above.
Unexpected guest at Shea Stadium. Well, he took the expression, "Why don't you drop by," literally and figuratively.
That's about the only way to beat the traffic in this town.
Oh, are they up Saturday night at Shea?
It was unbelievable to see a guy coming in from center field out of the dark like that. It surprised everybody. I think it got everybody, motivated. Everybody got excited. The fans went nuts. It had "Go Mets" on it. I know the gentleman had to spend some time in jail, but in the essence, look at these fans. They'll do anything for us.
But would the favor be returned by the Mets? Not in the first, for when play resumed, Rice walked, Boggs moved to second, and Dwight Evans went paratrooper hunting.
High drive up the alley in left center field. That's trouble, heading for the wall and off the wall. Dykstra plays it. 1 run will score on a double by Evans, and Rice holds at third.
Rice apparently thought the ball was out and didn't run that hard. Instead of scoring, he ended up on third. If Rice had scored there, that would have been a tremendous run early in the game.
In the second, Marty Barrett drove home Spike Owen to give Boston a 2-0 lead. And though Clemens appeared strong early on, the Mets wore him down, fouling off 64 pitches in the game.
Clemens was absolutely overpowering for 3 innings, but they fouled off a ton of pitches in the 4th and 5th innings. Hernandez and Carter and Mookie, and they just kept fouling pitch after pitch off. They defended themselves against being overpowered by a guy that had almost unhittable stuff. They just did a magnificent job to keep Clemens from ending that game too quickly.
The Mets finally broke through in the 5th as Strawberry walked and stole second. That set the stage for an emerging hero in the series, the irrepressible Ray Knight.
Hit up the middle, base hit. Here comes Strawberry, and he will score.
The Mets had done more than simply slice the lead in half. They had shown that Rocket Man was no Superman. And Mookie Wilson supplied still another piece of evidence.
Breaking ball hit into right field. Knight to second base will hold, and when Evans bobbles, he goes to third.
The night moves were just beginning for the Mets, as Danny Heap would 4-6-3, a 2-2 tie.
Ground ball hard to Barrett. They go to second for 1, to first, double play. However, Knight scores to tie it up.
So it stood into the 7th, when with Roger McDowell on the mound, the fragile line between GOAT and hero was crossed. On a soft bouncer, by Rice.
Roller to third. Knight charging. High throw off Hernandez's glove, and over to third goes Barrett.
Knight's folly put runners at the corners, and the Red Sox played it aggressive.
Rice goes. Sinker is hit down to second. They can't get the double place, and the run is in.
But just when things were looking darkest for the Mets, the Boston rally was put to rest.
Sinker hit into the hole. Now they're going to wave Rice in. Mookie's got a chance to get him to Carter. He is out at the plate.
Surprisingly, Boston then removed its best pitcher in favor of Calvin Schiraldi.
I know the Mets were supremely confident in beating Schiraldi. They had played with him. They knew him. They knew that if it came down to it, they could beat him. And they were happy he was out there.
Schiraldi promptly loaded the bases in the 8th, and Mets fans began warming to another miracle comeback.
Mazzilli at third, Dykstra at second, Hernandez at first, and one out. 3-0.
Oh, this will kill you.
Swung on and lined to left, right at Rice. Tagging up is Mazzilli to score. It's a brand new ball game.
Tied at 3 through 9, the most compelling story still remained in one of baseball's greatest games.
Premiering on.
Now it's 3-3 in the 10th, and Henderson at the plate, and Rick Aguilera going to work. And a drive to left. Going back on it is Mookie Wilson, and this one is gone. Henderson has done it again.
I remember the clip on TV that you see over and over again. Aguilera looks into the plate as Henderson's running the bases, and just there's nothing in his face. There's no emotion. There's no color. It's just like you could almost hear him swallow. And I think they felt they were in big trouble.
The despair in the Mets dugout grew even deeper when the mighty Marty Barrett came to the plate.
And it's hit into center, base hit. Dykstra charging. Here comes Boggs. He will score. And it is 5-3 Red Sox. And what a big run that was.
In the bottom of the 10th, the Mets went quietly at first, and the Boston clubhouse was made ready to put 67 years of frustration on ice.
And that's hit to dead center with Henderson going to run it down. And the Mets are down to their last out.
My feeling was that I wasn't going to watch Boston go run around and have fun on our field, so I went into the clubhouse. And
Keith was kicking everything in sight in Davy's office and throwing it around, saying what a brutal ending to a wonderful year and all that.
I can remember, when there was 2 outs, I was thinking, God, this is going to be great. We're going to be jumping all over each other in a second.
2 outs, nobody on. I know. I was sitting there thinking, well, what I always said as a 10-year-old would never happen in my lifetime has happened. The Red Sox are going to win the World Series.
They put up world champions, congratulations, world champions, Boston Red Sox, up on the board. And it flashed up for like a second. It just flashed up, and we're all like, reality. It's like, this isn't going to happen.
I'd love to lie and say, yeah, I knew we were going to come back. No one, everyone inside and everyone on the bench believed we had no chance. I believed that wholeheartedly, except for 4 guys, Gary Carter, Kevin Mitchell, Ray Knight, and Mookie Wilson.
When I was on the on-deck circle, I made a vow to myself, and I was not going to make the last out of the game and the series. And I just had a real confidence, and I had a presence there at the plate that I knew I was going to come through in one way or another.
Lined into left field, base hit for Carter, and the Mets are still alive.
Kevin Mitchell, who was on the phone making plane reservations to leave for San Diego the next day at the time. He wasn't even in uniform. He was up having a hot dog and making plane reservations. He was called down to hit, and then he got a single. The person sitting next to me said, I think they're going to break our hearts.
About this time, I was saying, well, there's a chance I may get up. And in all honesty, I was not really looking for that. I did not want that, that pressure on me. But as fate would have it, Three guys got a hit in front of me.
And that's going to be hit into center field, base hit. Here comes Carter to score, and the tying run is at third in Kevin Mitchell. And the Mets refuse to go quietly. With 2 out, they come scrambling back with consecutive hits by Carter, Mitchell, and Knight. And John McNamara goes to the mound. 5-4 Red Sox, and he's also going to the bullpen.
And somehow at that point, in came Bob Stanley, and poor Stanley has done yeoman's service over the years for the Red Sox, but he's like a red flag to Red Sox fans. Bring in Stanley, and only the worst can happen.
So now I'm up, and, you know, 8 million people are looking at me in New York. You know, they're either going to cheer for me or they're going to shoot me, one of the two. That's the way New York is. They expect the best. Going back in time is always something that a lot of people like to look at and say, well, what did I do at that particular time? Well, this is one time I can honestly say I did a great job, you know. All I want to do is I don't want to strike out. And it so happens that Bob Stanley threw a wild pitch.
And it's going to go to the backstop. Here comes Mitchell to score the tying run, and Ray Knight is at second base.
Now, at that point, a big relief is on me now. I mean, I can't lose. There's nothing I can do to lose anymore. When I came to the plate, we were losing, and now I'm still at the plate, and all of a sudden we're tied. I can't lose now, no matter what I do. So I just want to make contact.
Little roller up along first, behind the bag. It gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it.
The ball goes between Buckner's legs, and all of a sudden I'm a hero, and I didn't do anything.
And I had a long way to run, and you know, my feet weren't feeling too good at that time, and I was kind of bouncing on my heels, I guess, and just lost track of the ball and missed it. But I remember looking back through my legs and seeing the ball back there. But, you know, it was kind of a frustrating feeling, but, you know, you learn to accept those things. You know, you make mistakes, you make errors, and it was just a physical error. If it had been a mental error, I would have been a little harder to deal with. But, you know, I did my best.
The last-second heroics by the Mets forced an impromptu exodus from the Boston clubhouse. Cameras and champagne. They'd have been welcomed just across the way, where the men had turned to boys.
When Ray Knight scored, I think you had 4 or 5 guys in there who were acting like 3 or 4-year-olds, who were jumping up and down, hugging each other, going crazy. And I've never felt like that before. It was a great feeling.
If one picture is worth 1,000 words, you have seen about 1,000,000 words.
That was probably the worst feeling I ever had in my life in the game of baseball. It was, we were there, and one little slip, and we lost the game.
After that second out, we do know that it was one of the highest rates in the cardiac units in hospitals in Boston in history.
That was the year that, you know, we beat the Angels, you know, in a crazy way, too. Dave Henderson hit the home run, and, you know, the way Gene Mock had never won a game and everything, the clutch games or whatever they said, and Bruce Hurst come in and goes, I bet you Gene Mock's doing cartwheels and backflips in his front room right now, like, yeehaw, you know, it happened to somebody else. And when he said that, we all just started laughing, and then we just got ready to eat and got dressed and went home.
Are not only alive, they are well, and they will play the Red Sox in Game 7 tomorrow.
But even in the 9 lives of the Mets, a little rain must fall.
You know, I'm disappointed.
We had the rain out for Game 7, and that was probably the longest day of our lives, because we had the championship, and then we had to wait to try and get the 7th game.
Just like the 7th game of the '75 World Series, the Red Sox had a 3-0 lead. They have leads in all these big games, and they always have leads. So when Yogi said it ain't over till it's over, that really struck home to New Englanders more than any other area of the country.
Calvin Schiraldi, the former Met, coming in to try and stifle the Mets. Bottom of the 7th inning, it's going to be Knight, Dykstra, and Santana. High drive into deep left center, back goes Rice. This one is gone!
With series MVP Ray Knight leading the charge, there was no looking back for the Mets. After teasing their fans all year with the promise of greatness, They prevailed when the outlook was the bleakest and did their part to forever enshrine Game 6 as one of baseball's greatest games.
I will say it's the greatest game ever played. I would say it's one of the dramatic comebacks ever made in postseason play. I don't think I've ever seen one like that. There's always teams coming back in mid-season from 4 runs to 5 runs, but we're talking the World Series, a 3-run deficit, and they come back, and that's almost unheard of.
You know, things like that shouldn't happen in the World Series. They happen during the regular season a lot, but you just never think of it happening in the World Series, and it still, to me, boggles my mind.
Life under the microscope can be so unkind, but you need losers and winners in baseball, even if the winners still aren't sure.
I still think to this day that it still didn't happen. It's one of those Twilight Zone things that someday someone's going to wake me up and take my ring away.
This is Warner Fusel.